So with Alan Lowenstein, was our major work as my lawyer, along with Mel Levine, who now works for Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. He's still around, fortunately. So we went to court along with CBS, and Judge Robert Wenke, head of the Superior Court, asked the LAPD and the district attorney to submit the gun and bullet evidence they used in the Sirhan trial. And they did. And a panel was set up. Each one of us who were part of this, I chose a panelist, so did CBS, so did the district attorney, so did the police chief, so did a couple of other people involved in this thing. So the panelists were all very good criminalists, all with good records. Mm-hmm. And there were 6, and the 6 chose a 7th to head the panel. They were given instructions, given the evidence, and they went to work for 2 or 3 weeks. And they came back with a decision. They decided that there was no second gunman, and based upon their study of the evidence as criminalists. And that's what these middle-aged reporters, they ran to the phones with no second gun, no second gun. Actually, one of the members of the panel representing CBS that night criticized Cronkite's report like that, saying that was not our total decision. We said there's evidence there could have been a second gunman. So it wasn't just a flat decision, but that never made the papers at all. So here we were stuck. We had no idea what went on with them. And it was only about a year ago that I understood what was happening.
So, Paul, do you see any correlations, lines, interconnections between the assassination of Robert Kennedy and his brother John?
There could be, but I don't see any, and I'm not looking for any. Mm-hmm. My strategy was, I think, a winning strategy, is to go after the evidence, go after the prosecution's own evidence, and doing an analysis of the case, and not coming up with conspiracy theories or the fact that he was programmed, and he could have been, because you get tossed out of court at that point, and that's what's happened. 50 years of good lawyers, Sirhan's never been able to make it in the courtroom, even though he is innocent of shooting Robert Kennedy. And so that's the position I take. Proving his innocence, we're now working with one of the innocence projects in California. There's 3 of them. I don't want to name the one that we're working with because it's got to be confidential at this point. But we're working to clear his name on the murder of Robert Kennedy, because there was a second gunman. The prosecution's own evidence shows that Sirhan could not have shot Robert Kennedy. Their own evidence shows the second gunman did shoot Robert Kennedy. And so that's my job, is to make the case for Sirhan and clear him of the murder, and focus then on getting a new investigation. Not a reinvestigation, a new investigation. They never did, even though they had the goods on the second gunman. They never investigated him.
What excellent discipline and self-control, because I know there must be temptations to do many things.
No, I'm not tempted that way. I think we had this kind of discussion yesterday, why I'm involved this way, and I thought about it after we talked. It's because my work in high school and the university was in science. I was a chemistry math major. So this is why I can review the evidence and work with the evidence without getting into the imaginary stuff or even the truth of the matter. We don't know the whole truth behind the second gunman, but we first of all have to establish that Sirhan was not, because worldwide he's considered the gunman. I get a Google alert. All over the world, he's the guy.
I see.
Even members of the Kennedy family have gone and said, an Arab killed my father.
Huh.
They're not saying that anymore. And that's part of my strategy. I worked several years working on young Robert Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's now joined forces on being part of the new investigation. In fact, he went to visit Sirhan in prison down in San Diego, as I did a couple of years ago, and went to his parole board hearing, trying to make the case. Of course, it's frustrating because the parole board is not going to do anything, haven't done anything in 15 different parole board hearings. But it's something that makes the case that he didn't do it.
Yes.
And Bobby doing this. Now, one of the other persons I worked with on the case, Kathleen, has recently come out.
Mm-hmm.
She's the eldest of the Kennedys. I also include Ethel on our side in this one, although she hasn't said anything about the case itself. But she said, it was good that we came out against the death penalty for Sirhan, because if he had been executed as it was decided, it would have poisoned us. So she brings in a whole spiritual context in this thing. So I count her into the team.
Oh, wonderful.
And I often tell members of the family who are not with us, I'm doing exactly what Robert Kennedy was trying to do in solving his brother's case, because he was into the archives after he became U.S. Senator. He was into the Department of Justice archives with his chief investigator, going over the records.
Those are in Sacramento, right?
No, in D.C.
Oh, D.C. Okay.
Yeah, the JFK records.
Oh, yeah.
They were going so he was involved in JFK records. And I said, I'm doing what he was doing in order to put another Kennedy stamp on what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Well, I think you may be aware that we have invited Robert Kennedy Jr. to attend the conference.
I've seen the mail.
He respectfully declined because he's busy working on a couple of very important cases.
Yeah.
So we certainly respect that, and we wish that it had been otherwise.
Yeah. There's part of the manuscript over there. He did a book on the family and had 2 chapters on JFK and RFK, but he decided not to go with those, just do the family thing. That's been published. He's now working on JFK, RFK with a guy named Dick Lester, who's got a lot of good books out on JFK. And he lives very close by, and we're working together so that Bobby's coming out with a book on both after his.
So, what is your experience? Taking an overview, what has happened to labor since 1968 up until today, and try to be brief, because I bet you could talk for quite some time on it.
Well, it's very clear. The Republicans and business have taken over our elections, and we've labor movement, like most progressive groups, are in bad shape in this country. And it's even worse under Donald Trump, because he's the worst of all of them. But the labor movement has been going downhill since 1970, and you can feel it and hear it. And that's why in 72 I didn't feel too bad about going back to work in the factory, where I could do some union work directly, and knowing that politically we were in trouble, and are in trouble and have been in trouble for a long time.
I see.
I'm going to continue as long as I can, be 94 in December, to try to solve the Robert Kennedy case, as some of you are doing, and most of you are doing in solving the John Kennedy case. They're both very, very difficult cases, made more difficult because every establishment group we work with has been opposed to it, not cooperative, and keeps things hidden from us. So it's a very difficult road we're on, but if we pursue and continue, I think we'll get someplace someday. We have to, because these two important murders are a black mark on our country and our people, and I think this is what the American people want. They want these cases solved, and hopefully together we can do it.
What would you say to the young people who were not alive when Bobby was alive or John was alive? What's in it for them?
I think what young people can do is not only to learn about these cases, but study that period and show where both Kennedys were making real progress in terms of building our power, building our justice system so that people could have a better life in this country. I see young people really doing a lot of great work now, and there are a lot of issues out there. The shootings in our schools, the fact that the education system is creaking along and not giving decent educations to millions of young people. There are a lot of issues out there that young people can do something about, and I'm relying on you, and I know a lot of adults like me are relying on you as young people as well. The money and the power of corporations and right-wing groups in this country that have taken over the politics, have taken over our elections. You can just see it in this election right now, where so many people are off the rolls, deliberately taking off the rolls in this election. In several states this is happening, and it's been happening. And I think that's the power of the money and the corporations and the right-wing organizations in this country have just taken over our politics. And we've got to take the politics back by organizing. And this is where young people, I think, have got new inspiration now. And women have. I think a lot of our hope in this election is because of the way women are being treated and now rebelling against that treatment and organizing themselves and organizing us to do something about those problems. And a lot of men are doing this too, but men have not been able to solve the problem. And the fact that women are getting abused and acting up against abuse and being so supportive of health care, these are the issues that are counting in this election at this point. And hopefully that will bring a better turnout, despite the fact that people are being thrown off the rolls. Well, I'd like to be optimistic about solving the Robert Kennedy case and the John Kennedy case. Even the Dr. King and the other assassinations that we've been faced with, the Malcolm X. We don't know how to find the answers is the problem. And so finding the answers is I'm very pessimistic about.
Oh, pessimistic or?
Pessimistic.
Wait, you're pessimistic to?
I'm pessimistic about finding answers to these cases. I think we are in the struggle to find them. I'm doing what I can. People involved with the JFK case are doing what they can. Some people are still working on Dr. King, Malcolm X. But we aren't getting any place because the establishment, again, holds the key to what we were talking about. We don't have that key yet. We don't have the power in government in order to open up these cases. And we have to build towards that. And I'm somewhat optimistic this year that with the young people, with women actually becoming part of the power of this country and deciding who's going to be in the Congress is the only hopeful sign I see.
So are you saying that the evidence is there, it's just that the establishment keeps it tight?
Yeah. It's all locked up. Yeah, I think the problems of this country, we see the sickness as a result of the loss of Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy to assassination, and not solving those assassinations has really damaged our democracy because we don't know the answers, but we're prevented from getting the answers by the establishment. And the establishment is guilty.
Mr. Schrade, thank you so very much for your time. Thank you for your courage and for rebounding from what could have ended a person's viable life.
Nearly did.
And thank you for the hard work you're doing, and we're on your side, sir.
Thank you.